This is Environmental Science 1, Chapter 2, Part 3 on living things in ecosystems. In this portion of the video lecture, we will be looking at animal adaptations in the ecosystem and a brief review of Darwin's theory of evolution. If you can remember and rewind back to biology, we did talk about Darwin's theory of evolution. Remember, the theory of evolution kind of contains 4 parts. We have, first of all, members of a population. They differ in physiology, meaning their body shape, form, and their behavior. So there is variation in a population. That variation is passed down from generation to generation. So from parent to offspring. So variations are inherited. Some animals and plants will overproduce. So they will have many more offspring that can actually survive. And finally, the last part to Darwin's theory of natural selection is any of these inherited characteristics from ma and pa organism, if they are an advantage to survival and reproduction, those traits will appear more in the population. So basically, natural selection is the unequal survival and reproduction of organisms in nature. Natural selection, a lot of what plays into that is the environment itself, the biotic or abiotic resources, depending on what the organism needs. Since there's competition, there will be some organisms that make it and some that don't. So only organisms that can adapt and survive, they will be the ones that are going to be able to produce offspring to keep the species going. So strong traits, for lack of a better term, those traits, if they're an advantage, they are passed on to offspring, and those will be preserved in the population. So positive traits, things that are going to help them hunt better or be hidden better from predators so they're not eaten. Anything that's going to help them survive and pass on their genes to the next generation are considered strong traits. Weak traits, again for lack of a better word, those will disappear from the population as a whole because those individuals that would inherit those traits may not survive or reproduce. And so those traits then, because they're passed on from generation to generation, won't show up in the population anymore. So weak traits will disappear, strong traits will be favored. If animals and plants do not adapt to their environment, to their surroundings, to their biological community, they may not survive. So adaptation are features of structure and function. So adaptations suit the organism to the conditions of its environment. We talked about the organism's ecological role or niche. Adaptations will fit in an animal's or plant's niche. So adaptations, if they are beneficial, they will increase the rate of survival and reproduction for an organism and for a species. These adaptations take many generations to show, and the organisms do take a long time to adapt to their environment. Coevolution. We mentioned this in part 2 a little bit. Coevolution is where you have the evolution of one species that will influence the evolution of another species. So 2 or more species evolve in response to each other. So we kind of mentioned the evolutionary arms race before. So as the lynx there in the photo becomes faster, has better eyesight, the Arctic hare, which is about to be the prey item in that diagram, becomes better camouflage, perhaps becomes faster itself. So the coevolutionary arms race is very back and forth. There's lots of changes to the individual predator and prey populations, but really the result is the same. So predator populations, if they're efficient at capture, hey, natural selection, because that's an advantage, natural selection will favor that trait. Prey populations, meanwhile, evolve ways to avoid predators, escape them, or even fight them off. So it's a very back and forth sort of situation. This has been Environmental Science 1, Chapter 2, Part 3, Living Things in Ecosystems.